Hello and welcome everyone, Hat Top Gaming back here again with another Steam Deck review. Today's topic is on a mystery game that for as long as I can remember has only ever received praise, and after playing it, I have no idea why. That game being The Forgotten City. And as always, we'll be going over the same three things in story, gameplay, and performance on the Steam Deck, and then giving the game a rating out of 10 at the end. Also, at the end of the review, I'll be going over spoilers that go more in depth as to why I didn't like the game, as unfortunately I can't really explain it too well without giving away the plot. So starting off with the story, you wake up not knowing where you are when a woman tells you that she saved you from floating down the river and asks you to go look for a fellow survivor who went down a path along the way. You end up stumbling into some ruins and fall into a vortex that sends you into a forgotten city, still stuck in Roman times. Shortly after you arrive, the mayor of the town tasks you with figuring out who is about to break the golden rule. What is that? Well, all we know for sure is that if someone were to commit what is deemed to be a sin, the golden statues that litter the town will awake and kill everyone. Though, as you may imagine, not everyone believes in it. With this in mind, you do your best to find out how to break the curse, what and how it was created, what for, and how to get back home, of course. This can be done a number of ways, with the game having a total of 4 endings, but they all entail you creating a paradox. Essentially, you need to solve the problem, and by solving it, your need to be there no longer exists, so you're thrown back from whence you came. Also, there is a mysterious force doing its best to help you among the shadows, so keep your ears clean and pay attention for any whispers you may hear. Moving on over to gameplay now, it consists of 4 things, but really only 2. The first being talking and lots of it, as when you first start off, you'll be going around and asking everyone the same questions over and over and over again to not only get a grasp on the situation, but also how they feel about things personally, and possibly they'll give you quests that may give you leads on how to solve the issue, or they may even give you items to help you. Honestly, you'll get pretty far, if not all the way, by simply just playing the game, as things are spelled out rather clearly for you for the most part. The second gameplay mechanic is looping, so if at any time someone breaks the golden rule, you'll have the chance to run to a portal back at the start, and you'll be able to reset time back when you first arrived, while keeping all your inventory and the knowledge you picked up along the way. Pretty self-explanatory. There's also some light parkouring you can do, and some simple but yet effective bow and arrow action. At the start of the game, you'll be able to pick a background for yourself, which will give you a specific perk, though to be honest with you, they're all equally whatever, as they don't much influence anything beyond early game stuff and what you can do. If anything, the best perk is being able to run faster and for longer, as running is your only way to get around the city. Though regardless of what you pick, you'll still be able to do everything regardless of which one, so the perks and questions really just don't really add much to the game outside of the beginning stages. A major problem the game has is the more you loop, the more bland the game feels, and the more you realize how little freedom you have when certain outcomes are just seemingly inevitable, or you're forced to waste time doing the same task continuously until you figure out what you're missing. It doesn't even help that after completing certain tasks, it hardly opens up new dialogue options, or on the other end, you're forced to answer conversations in a specific manner in order to progress certain storylines, which shows the writers clearly trying to make a statement about what they think is right, only then to undermine what they just said 10 minutes later. Not to mention how tedious some endings are to unlock given how you're expected to figure them out. And I know some people are going to say, oh, well of course you have to talk in a certain way, that's not anything new, and while that is true, the game comes off very preachy. Now let's touch on performance real quick, and this is one of the few games I've played in my gaming career at large where I've never had a consistent or stable experience. Frame drops were constant, though they never were egregious. The game world has multiple long loading screens, and even just starting conversations with characters is a drag because they put a false loading screen on every character turning to face you before speaking, and if you try to skip past dialogue too quickly, it will lead to your response prompts glitching out a bit. I also experienced a bug where when I was below ground for the first time and one of the citizens just suddenly spawned in front of me to ask about a quest, and once I got out of that talking tree, I was just stuck out of bounds and had to reload a save. Something tells me I would have dealt with far more bugs had the game not been as short as it is. Bugs aside though, I didn't deal with any crashes, but the game did surprisingly take up a lot of battery on the deck. Also, while I understand this is the studio's first ever release, it looked outdated even by 2021 standards, and the fact that it's still buggy today is kind of ridiculous. If you go through the Steam patch notes, they did 3 total patches. That's just dumb and lazy. Now, it's time to talk spoilers. If you haven't played the game already, skip over to this time mark right now. I'll give you a second or two. Okay? Alright, let's start. So I want to talk about these 2 things first. Number 1, being the writer or writers of this game have a clear agenda and political leanings that are impossible to ignore and leave a sour taste where a good story could have been placed. They mentioned the pandemic and on occasion selfish people, quote unquote, who did things that the experts said that they shouldn't do. The game was released in 2021, so looking back on this is kind of ironic because we all know how the lockdown stuff and the mask stuff went and how most of it was just useless outright. So because, disappeared overnight, but whatever, I guess. They also have a very clear atheist or anti-religion based mindset on the writing, as they go out of their way to diminish ancient cultures and their beliefs, while also painting Christians as bad people. Now, I'm not here to argue for the sake of the church or anything, but when you have a writer with clear grievances against certain ways of thinking, it immediately sinks what the game is trying to do, as they just funnel themselves into a hole. Which is the biggest problem with this game. For as much as the writers bad talk religion, both new and old, the literal point of the game is that there's some ancient god that not only brought you there, but the golden rule is literally real, and in one of the endings you meet them and you can ask about the golden rule and so on. How are you writing characters that are bad-mouthing religion while they know the curse to be real and you as the writer literally know it's real, just to end up calling yourself an idiot because the game talks about idols and false gods, to then only later have the god in this game then tell you that everyone who believes in him is actually right, they just call him different things. Not only that, but if you discover the ancient ruins, you find an Egyptian dude who wants to break one of the plaques you need to unlock the fourth ending where you meet this god. He wants to break it because he considers it blasphemy, so he chucks it into what he calls his version of hell, which you have to go into to get. When you make it out, he's fucking waiting for you to kill you because he doesn't want you to leave with it, so you have to convince him to let you go. If he thinks he's throwing the plaque into his version of the underworld, how does he also know where you're going to come up from, and why does he try to stop you? You can't have it both ways. The game does this constantly with noticeable gaps in the writing as a whole. For example, if you help Galerius tell the priestess about his crush on her, you still can't ask him to vote for Sentius, and he's just going to run as mayor instead, which means you have to save Ulpis, which means you also have to save his crush and find a way to grant their freedom, which is all a hassle to do, and you'll have to do it a few times since you're more than likely won't get the correct ending the first attempt. There's also multiple dead-end characters that have one single quest attached to them and nothing more about them. Some of them only come into play when you want certain outcomes to occur, otherwise they do nothing, and figuring out how to do it and who does what can be a major pain in the ass when these characters only have like 5 lines unless you just happen to figure out when to go up to them and exactly how to do it, which opens up that new conversation. But how you'd even know that without backtracking a million times is just frustrating. We can also talk about the philosopher you find underground, who if you don't tell him what he wants to hear, he won't give you the key you need to open up a gate, which is necessary for the fourth ending. But if you kill him and just try to take the key off his body, he doesn't have it all of a sudden. How fucking convenient. So you have to have a conversation with him about the golden rule of morality, where he basically preaches to you about how there's no correct morality, even though the fucking god trapping you there clearly thinks there is, and he even explains himself as to why he thinks he's right. So the writer basically creates a character who literally tells you that you're wrong, and then creates another character that tells you that that character is wrong. So what is the point of doing this and talking about belief systems and which one is correct and which one isn't if you're still going to prove yourself wrong? What does that make sense for? I have to imagine they wrote that character to be ironic or something, because if you try to call them out, they literally explain to you why they're right, which to be honest, they low-key are, and the only way to quote-unquote beat them is by creating a time loop where you already did. It's actually really stupid how this game literally preaches to you just to write itself into a hole and then dismantling its own argument. But you know what, let's just head over and finish this video off. I've spent too much time ranting about this. What's crazy about this game is that I genuinely had lots of fun for the opening hours, as it was all new to me and I was doing my best to connect the dots and see what I could do. But once I start meeting certain characters and looping, the immersion slowly but surely starts to break as I realize how much of a hole the writing puts you in. I played this game a bit more after beating it the first time and while also making this review, and I came to dislike it the more I played it, as it became clear to me just how obtuse it was. It starts out great, but pins itself against the wall when you realize how rigid the solutions are. It took me roughly 4 hours to complete, and I bumped that up to 5.8 hours with 15 of 40 achievements unlocked. I was originally going to give it a 6, but after further deliberation, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Actually, I changed my mind again. I played some more and I got my playtime up to 7.2 hours and 19 of 40 achievements unlocked, as I went out of my way to get the fourth ending, which takes the longest and is also the most satisfying, but again, it requires so much effort and looping even when you actually already know what to do. But because of that ending, I'm going to give the game a 5 out of 10, only because that ending was so good. So while the premise is unique and it has a strong start, the longer you play, the more obvious the cracks in the game become, and leading to an odd experience that overall felt like a letdown, especially with how much people talk this game up. But like I said, ultimately, the only thing that saved this game from being a complete flop in my eyes was me going the extra mile and digging for more. Maybe I just wasn't the right audience for this game, but all the same, it was a letdown for me. If you didn't listen to the spoilers and you're still waiting to play the game yourself, whether or not you like it, it's really just going to come down to how much you like the writing, and as in my mind, it just was a miss wide left. But all the same, let me know if you agree or you don't with my rating of the game. Have you played it before? Did you like it? What did you think of the writing? What ending did you get? Leave me any comments or questions down below, and I will see you all next time. Peace.